This video is for the regular viewers, for the distilling geeks amongst us, those that really like chasing the craft of home distillation, and you're about to find out why. How's it going, chasers? If you're watching this video, you probably know exactly who I am, so we can skip that part. I have to say a huge apology to everyone out there that has bought into this Base Malt Co-Lab thing. I'm sorry it's taken so long to get this part up and running, but it is what it is. Basically what happened is I had 3 or 4 different decisions to go about how to make this work, and I didn't really understand any of them well enough to make it happen. So there's a lot of umming and ahhing and analysis paralysis, basically trying to figure out what was the best way forward when I didn't know what was going to happen on step 13 and 14. But we're there now, guys. We're there, and I apologize. We're ripping into it. Now, for those of you guys that know exactly what I'm talking about, you can skip to this timestamp, or I'll put a link down in the description as well. If you're watching this and you're kind of intrigued as to what the hell is going on, but you don't know, that's totally cool. Maybe you're one of the newer people around the channel. Welcome. It's great to have you here. The idea is that I wanted to set up a platform, a way for people all around the world, you guys at home, the chasers, wherever you are. I wanted to set up a platform to allow all of us to pool our knowledge together. I wanted us to be able to conduct experiments and use the resource that we have, which is the community, to make those little experiments not just some random guy in his shed trying something and getting a sample size of 1. I wanted us to be able to all collaborate on it together and to be able to support each other's findings, if that makes sense. And then I wanted all of that data to be open sourced. So the collab was born, and the very first collab is the Great Base Malt Co-Lab. If you go into any homebrewing store pretty much in the world, if you go to any homebrewing website pretty much in the world to make beer, you can find a list of tasting notes, what a certain grain is going to contribute to a beer, recommended percentages to use them, the types of styles to use them in. But for whatever reason, distilling just doesn't have that. So if you want to know the flavor contributions that something like Golden Promise is going to bring to a whiskey, for example, you're kind of out on your own. And you could just take the tasting notes from the beer and assume that those flavors are going to carry over. But if you've been doing this for any length of time, you know that it is kind of, it's kind of hard to anticipate what flavors from anything, from a certain fruit or from a wash or from a grain, which of the flavors are going to carry over into the final product and which are going to be left behind in the distillation process or the aging process, and so on and so forth. So basically what all this boils down to is the very first collab is the Base Malt Co-Lab, and what we're trying to do is build up a database of tasting notes for specific grains, for specific base malts, so that eventually people can come along and look through it and pick out the grain that they want based on the results that they want, or look at a certain flavor profile they want to build, and then be able to use this data to go about doing that, you know. So at a glance be able to say, oh, I probably want 80% of this and 20% of that, for example. And like I said, it's a platform. It's something that develops into more later on. If we can get all the the kinks in the process ironed out, then perhaps we could look at fermentation temperature, or we could look at yeast selection, for example, or we could look at damn near any variable in the hobby and really start to dial in whether or not it makes a difference, because instead of just using anecdotal, I tried it and it tasted good, or I tried it and it tasted different, which sort of scientifically is a really meaningless pursuit in some ways because it doesn't really say anything. But if we can get 50 people, 100 people, 1,000 people all over the world to try the same thing and submit their data, we can start to create something pretty powerful. So that's the general idea. Anyway, guys, if you're at this point and you haven't heard anything about it before now and you don't know where to get started, the Base Malt Co-Lab is up and running, and basically what it means is that you at home can select a specific grain off a list of grains that we're using. Yes, we're using a specific list of grains because we want to keep the variables as low as we can, and then there is a fairly specific process that we need you to follow Once again, to minimize as many variables as possible. The only variable we want to test here is the grain itself. Obviously we have the problem of, you know, where you are, you've got different equipment than me and different equipment than the guy next to us. So that's where the numbers comes in. We can control as many variables as we can. The variables we can't control, we're going to try and account for with numbers, with getting lots of people to do this. So if you want to be involved in this and you want to contribute to it, once this opens, I never plan on closing it. So in 15 years time, more people can submit their data to the Great Base Malt Challenge, to the Great Base Malt Co-Lab. And every time they do, that makes that data a little bit more meaningful, a little bit more powerful. So if you want to be involved, I would suggest you go to this URL here. There is a PDF there that gives you all of the details in terms of the process and the parameters and the variables that we're trying to control for. And there is also a YouTube playlist linked on that page that will give you every video that's come out in this sort of collab series. All right, so if you're watching at home, you've never heard of the Base Malt Co-Lab, I think you're pretty well caught up. If you haven't caught up by this stage, then you can, like I said, you can go back and watch those videos. So the purpose in this video is to let you know that the next part of the process has been unlocked. Once again, for the new people, just in case you don't know, there's people out there that have already started making recipes, making products, making samples for the Base Malt Co-Lab. Once again, you're not late, you're not going to miss out. Once this opens, it never shuts down, the data just keeps rolling in for as long as I can keep my website open, basically is the idea. So if you haven't got started yet, don't let this freak you out. Like I said, go back, check that website out, watch through the other videos, and you can get ready. You can start cooking your own stuff up as well. But for those people that have already created their sample, you can now submit your recipe and your process data. And you can do that once again by going to this URL here, and there is a button about 3/4 of the way down that page that says submit your data. Click on that and it's going to take you to a Google Forms questionnaire, survey, whatever you want to call it, and you got to put all your data into that. Once again, links in the description down below. I'll put them everywhere I can. It'll be really hard to miss it, okay? Now, a couple of questions that I imagine is going to pop up in people's heads straight away. No, we are not asking for the sensory data yet. A couple of viewers and a couple of Patreons actually very, very smartly suggested being able to submit multiple taste test data or the sensory data multiple times for the express purpose of being able to take one sample and give it to multiple people and get their sensory data on it. So once again, we're pushing more and more numbers into as many things as we can to iron out all the things that we can't account for, like for example, the absolute inaccuracy of our, woo, that was close, our tasteometers. The idea is that this first part of the process, you're going to submit all of your details for what you did and what you made, and you're going to put a tasting code into it. You need to come up with your own tasting code. Think of it like a password, and then later on, people can submit their sensory data with that tasting code, and it'll tie it back to that same sample. Yes, this is all completely anonymous. I wanted to make it all anonymous, but people will see everything that you put in there. So don't like use your first name, your last name, and your address as the tasting code, because people will know who you are. It is your responsibility to record that tasting code exactly as you put it in and save it somewhere, because if you don't, when you submit your sensory data later on, it's not going to be attached to anything. We're not going to know what it goes against, if that makes sense. I think everything should be fairly self-explanatory. I think everything should make sense once you get to that link and start filling in your data. Once again, if you use that PDF and kept details of the parameters, the variables, the things that we knew we wanted to track from the beginning, you'll have all the information to do it. It shouldn't take you that long, but just be aware it's not something you can do in 45 seconds. So we're starting to get towards the exciting part of this collab, guys. We're not that far off being able to actually start seeing a few results. I hope that makes sense, guys, and I need to say a huge thank you to the Patreons, because these are the sort of things that I've wanted to do on the channel since the beginning, and I just haven't had the time. I haven't had the resource, I haven't had the ability to work on stuff like this, because let's face it, this isn't the sort of thing that is really going to grow the channel, right? This isn't a get rich quick scheme for Jesse. This is something that I want to do, something that I'm interested in, and I'm allowed to do, and allowed to get you guys, like the small percentage of the channel that are really into this stuff. It gives us the opportunity to actually be able to do it. It gives us the platform to do it. So thank you so much, Patreons. You're the ones that are really making this possible. All right, guys, I've got nothing really else to say about this. I wanted to get it out and I wanted to put it in the main video slot. I guess what I'm getting at is that I like the fact that every now and again I can take the pedal off the gas in terms of growing the channel, you know, like working towards that sort of stuff. And just do something that's special for the original group, the core group, the people that are here because of the love of the craft and the geekery, not just out of interest or whatever it happens to be. If you're here out of interest, that's awesome. Like, good on you. And like I said, the data's going to be open source, so anyone can enjoy it. Anyway, I'm rambling. You guys know what to do. Hit the like button, so on and so forth. Keep on chasing the craft. I'll see you next time. Have a kick-ass week, guys. See ya.